Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the Associate Editor of Features at Variety. Thank you. Yes, I know you're all here to see me. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this special screening of Rush, and I am so pleased to welcome two of the stars who go head-to-head in this film. First, please welcome an actor you might remember as the lovelorn sniper in Inglourious Basterds and Bourne Ultimatum. He is spellbinding as Niki Lauda. Please welcome Daniel Bruhl.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also joining us is an actor who I'm sure you recognize from his trio of wonderful independent films, Thor, The Avengers, and Snow White and the Huntsman. Truly, truly a revelation as James Hunt. Please welcome Chris Hemsworth.
Thank you.
I'm stuttering a little. You guys are so fantastic in this movie. It really is kind of overwhelming. Congratulations on a wonderful film. And because this is a SAG audience, I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Do we have one?
Do we have one?
We're not meant to be here.
No, I was so honored when I got the award for the best ensemble for Inglourious Basterds, but I never received the actual award. I heard it's too heavy to send it to Germany, so
We have it right here for you. There
thank you.
What did you get your SAG card? That was your first American movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So your first movie out of the gate, you win the SAG Ensemble Award for. Yeah.
That's just showing off.
And I think for you, was it Star Trek?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Why do I know that and you don't?
I think so. I remember getting the envelope with the card and all the bits and pieces. It was great. It meant I could stay here. I didn't have to get back on the plane and go back home. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Rush. This is a film scripted by Peter Morgan, who is so good at telling real-life stories like Frost Nixon and The Queen. How did the script find its way to you, and what drew you to your respective roles?
Well, I was blown away when I read it, but it frightened me because I grew up in Western Germany, in Cologne, near the Nürburgring, where the racetrack where the accident happened. So when I was a kid, we all knew who Niki Lauda was, and he's a living legend in Germany. So I thought, wow, it's such a good script, and I want to play that part. But I wasn't thinking that I was, getting the offer. So I went to the audition with Ron and Peter. And then I thought, oh wow, it's actually working quite well because I was told that I only had 30 minutes with Ron and Peter, and then I looked at the watch and it was like 45 minutes, and I thought, oh okay, and then was starting, and then I started to show off, and I said to Ron, I want to get this accent right, because in Germany we have this dry accent, but Niki is an Austrian and it's so different, and then I started to speak in Austrian, fake Austrian, because I hadn't learned it by then, and then all of a sudden Peter Morgan answers me in polished Viennese, this is a shit accent, this is not right, and I was like, okay, but still, Ron called me a couple of days later and it still worked, but yeah.
Weren't you driving when he called you?
I was driving, yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I was in Spain on a motorway and I was overtaking trucks, and my girlfriend was screaming at me, you are not a good driver, you are not a rally driver. And at this moment I got the call. I said, you see, I'm not that bad.
And Chris, I think if this is true, you auditioned without even being asked.
Yeah, I had... is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's an amazing
no, don't
thing.
bother sending a tape in, Chris. I was shooting Avengers at the time, and I had met Ron previously just on a general, and was a huge fan, as I think everybody is, and read the script and had the same reaction Daniel and everybody who'd read the script had, which was, I just loved the story, loved these characters, and I didn't know anything about Formula One or James Hunt or this story, but was just blown away by it. And I remember talking to my agent and my manager and saying, well, can you get me in? And they said, yeah, he's a fan, but it's, there's many more steps to go. And so I just put down an audition, and which my wife filmed for me in our hotel, and you know, 115 takes later, we had the slightly better version of it. And she was like, "Nah, bullshit, again, no, don't buy it," you know. So her directorial debut, and my intro to Ron, and yeah, he responded to it, and we got on the phone, and it kind of happened really quickly from there. And it's funny, sometimes you know, I wouldn't have normally done that, but for whatever reason, just you know, wanted to be that proactive about it because I felt some kind of connection to it.
How did you find out you got the part? Where were you?
I think I was in Albuquerque shooting, and Ron had called me and said, "Yeah, let's do this. It'd be great." I really like what you did. It was great, man. Yeah.
I think what everyone here wants to know is your wife available for audition coaching?
She is. She's out the back. So.
And, you know, I don't think there's anyone out there who doesn't love Ron Howard, and if they do, I don't want to know them. What
That's right.
What is it like working with not just such a talented guy, but one of the nicest guys in the business?
Yeah, I mean, he is, and it's funny, it's almost his, the level of wonderfulness that he embodies, it kind of overshadows even everything else at times. You know, people go, "Oh, he's such a nice guy," and there's such an ease to his filmmaking, and it's so accessible that it must be easy, and you know, almost doesn't get the credit sometimes. This film was I've never seen anybody work so hard and you know, attack the you know, the medium or constantly pushing the boundaries with what he could do and who he was collaborating with. And you know, you see the way that this film's shot from Anthony Dodd Mantle is just, I think, just stunning. But you know, Ron's right there with him, and it's a collaboration, as with Hans Zimmer and Peter Morgan, and you know, Ron has such an acute focus for detail and pushing at that extra step constantly, you know, and he's the sweetest guy on the planet, you know, and he has a very diplomatic way of saying, you know, if you say to him, "Oh, you know, what if we did this with the scene? I was thinking, you know, James could do this," and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll think about that. That's a good idea," yeah. Which is a flat out no. Yeah. You know? But that's he won't ever let you feel like it was a useless suggestion. No, he's the best.
Didn't you think he didn't like you for like 3/4 of the movie? You said.
Yeah, I feel that about most of the time. You know? I think it's just that you constantly think you're going to be told, "We found someone better. Sorry, you know, he's better." And I think until like, yeah, it was I think we both talked about this. I mean, we were both, I think, incredibly scared by this and playing these two icons, and I remember halfway through going, "Is even, you know." I mean, Andy was incredibly nice, but he's like that to everybody.
And he's been an actor. I guess that helps as well. You know,
Yeah,
he knows how to communicate with you. You know, and he gives you right the amount of you know, attention and confidence. And so he created this very relaxed atmosphere on set. So we were both quite, you know, fearless.
And what kind of research did you put into these roles? I mean, aside from like learning to drive, I understand you got to meet Niki.
Oh yeah, many times, and it freaked me out at first because he's as blunt as in the movie. So, so first time he called me, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I saw +43, so that's Austrian. I was like, "Okay, hello," and then he said, "Yeah, I guess we have to meet now." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And he said, "Well, just bring hand luggage to Vienna in case we don't like each other. You can piss off right away." So, fortunately, he liked me then, and I stood longer than expected and had to buy some extra clothes in Vienna. And then from that moment on, he really supported not only me, but also Peter Morgan and Ron. You know, whenever we had a question, even on set, sometimes we were there paralyzed, and I would call him and say, "Shit, did you put on the gloves first and then the helmet, or the helmet first and then the gloves?" And he would always call us back and give us advice. So I'm very thankful for his openness.
And Chris, obviously you didn't have the luxury of getting to speak to James Hunt, but who did you talk to, and what sort of research did you put into this role?
I mean, a lot of, initially it was internet clippings and interviews and what have you, and then there were various biographies that were, some were incredibly kind of outrageous and inaccurate, and some were a little more truthful. And then the same with the people we spoke to, who'd claim they knew him, who'd have one version of who he was, and then people and across the board, there's the most contrasting, contradicting kind of quotes on the guy, and that was kind of fascinating. I mean, that kind of almost gave me more of an insight into who he was than you trying to pin down one version. It was the fact that there was this complicated kind of guy there. And the best thing, I think, was there was some B-roll footage of James with doing interviews and stuff, and the outtakes of the interviews that BBC had given us, which never went to air. It was just because James was screwing around and making jokes, and the shot in the movie where he says big balls about how he won the race was all part of this sequence of B-roll. And the shot you see at the end there of James kind of looking and then looks into the camera and there's a big smile was so it's the shots like that which spoke volumes to me anyway about he just had a childlike kind of fascination with the world and an ownership of his environment. And there's a camera and I'm going to look straight into it, and and then there's someone there and I'll talk to them, and I want to do something here, I will. If not, I'm out of the room. And much like kids do, there's no kind of censorship or will I or won't I, and what's it's politically correct or socially kind of acceptable. He just kind of did his thing in his way, and there was a freedom to the way he lived, I think, and that was something which I tried to hook into, I guess.
Now, obviously, these two treat each other terribly on screen. Did any of that carry over into real life?
You're lucky we're in the same room.
Well, except we liked each other. It's except the moments when I got the.
Sorry.
I was picked up at 3:00 in the morning when they did my prosthetic makeup. For 6 or 7 hours I was sitting in the makeup trailer, and then sometimes I would sit there
Like
at 3:00. Oh, and then I looked at the call sheet and it said Chris Hemsworth pick up at 10. And first scene, Chris Hemsworth kissing a nurse. Second scene, Chris Hemsworth making love on a plane. And third scene, Niki Lauda checking his tires. And I was
I remember rolling in a few mornings. G'day, mate. How you going? He's just like, fucking don't touch me. Well done, though.
But one of you described this movie to me as a romantic. You were actually playing it like a romantic comedy between the two.
we did.
Between the takes,
Yeah.
we had a romantic comedy, maybe.
Wasn't
Which
that
is
bad?
soon to be released on iTunes. I hope not.
You brought up the prosthetics, and I'm curious, how did you guys go about physically transforming yourself into these characters? Those are fake teeth in the movie. Yes, okay. I was like, what if I'm wrong?
They're a beautiful set of pegs.
But it helped, and the head of department and the makeup department, Mark Collier, who had just won the Oscar for Iron Lady, was incredible. He was so good, because no matter how close Anthony Mantle came with his camera, you couldn't tell that it was prosthetic makeup. It's just unbelievable. And then, of course, it helped me, because sometimes I would wander around the set and there were extras who didn't realize that it was fake prosthetic makeup, and they were shocked when they saw me, and that made me understand what Niki had gone through. So it was a painful experience, because people looked away and felt uncomfortable, and that does then something with you. So.
What's it like to spend an entire movie where people keep calling you unattractive?
Tough. But, yeah, especially playing with someone like him. And I hated those scenes in the tent when all these girls are standing outside. James Hunt. And it was quite real, It was like, they. So I said, what about me? But well, hopefully in the future there's going to be some other parts, with them.
Chris, out of curiosity, what was the audition scene you did?
It was actually the monologue, the beginning of the film, when he's describing the closeness to death and what women find attractive about it. And I shot it as though I was talking to somebody, you know, in a bar, describing, you know, my feelings about it.
Did that help give you a window into? I mean, it's kind of difficult to understand why people would risk their life.
Yeah, and it did. I think, you know, I started reading a lot of stuff on why people partake in activities like this, or climb mountains, or do anything which is adrenaline driven, and there's a hell of a amount of risk involved. And the common sort of thread with people was the immediacy of what that fear gave you. You know, when death is the option, if you're not concentrating, then you're probably going to concentrate. And you know, nothing kind of forced you into the moment. I think we've all kind of at one stage felt, you know, had to pay attention, and gives you absolute, you know, presence in the now and not in the future and in the past, than that kind of that fear. And which is why, and then I think you become addicted to that, you know. And James sought that adrenaline, I think, on and off the track, and also why we want to either partake in those activities or watch people do it. You know, the expression, you're on the edge of your seat. That's it. You know, you're forced to pay attention and look at now. And I think there's something kind of refreshing about that kind of activity in that life.
What about the technical aspect of things? Did they send you to driving school?
Yeah, we did a 3 or 4 week kind of boot camp of driving, and which was fun. He had it was an accident, a kind of.
Yeah, a wheel came off, and I made a spin, and
He
in
bounced
my
on the-
paranoid German brain, I immediately thought that it was Chris who
every time.
manipulated the car.
Hang on. I was tightening the wheel nuts on his car before he, you know. So I don't know how it came off. No, but actually he was doing a big burnout, and the wheel actually came off, and I was on the other side of the lot to where we were driving, and the car like bounced on the axle for a second, and inches from going completely over, and there's Daniel's head kind of protruding from the vehicle. So
Sure.
I didn't do it, all right?
He was just trying to help you be method.
That's right. I was helping you get into character.
What did end up being the most difficult part about making the film? I mean, be it a particular scene you struggled with, or dealing with prosthetics alone sounds painful.
Yes, yeah, well, that was painful. And then it was an interesting journey for that character, because I was a bit worried after the first week, and I went to Peter and Ron, and I said, well, will the people like me when they see the movie? Won't they think that I'm just an asshole? And Peter Morgan said, no, trust me. It's going to be, there's a journey, and you know, towards the end, people will have empathy with both of them. And I didn't, you know, I wasn't sure at first, but then it was important in my case to make this guy really a bit more sensitive and likable. And then still one of my favorite scenes is when we meet by the plane at the end. Because and that's so fabulous about the script, that it doesn't end up, you know, with one being the hero and the other one being the villain. But you know, you would like both of them in their very own way, and you would understand both of the guys' philosophy. And I'm happy that, you know, it worked out.
I asked the same question to Ron, like 2 weeks into shooting. I said, who's the good guy here? Who's the bad guy? You know, to put it so bluntly. And he said, you know, I don't know. And he said, all my friends in Hollywood said the same thing about this film's not going to work because you don't have a clear, you know, good guy, bad guy. And it's sort of unconventional in that way, and such a tough thing, I think, for a filmmaker and Peter Morgan and Ron to pull off. But you know, by the time you get to that final race, and the feedback has been, and that's the way we felt, was that you don't know who you're vying for, you know, and that's that was what was fascinating about these guys. They were flawed, and one was a hero 1 minute, and vice versa.
Had either of you, I know that you're also in the Fifth Estate, where you're playing a real person, but I believe this was shot first. Had either of you played a real person before, and is there a certain kind of, you know, responsibility that comes with that?
Yeah, well, I played twice a real person, but dead person. So a poet in the 20s in Germany, and an anarchist, a victim by the Franco regime in Spain, who was then executed in '74. but it was the first time that I played two characters who were still alive, which, yeah. And again, with Daniel Domscheit-Berg in The Fifth Estate, it was the same. I was lucky to have a good relationship with him, and I trusted him, and I could defend him, playing him, which is always helpful, when you really like the guys that you play, and also partly envy them. I envy them both. Daniel for being a true activist, and being so determined, and Niki for being so, straightforward and and honest.
No. Besides Thor, obviously.
Yeah.
He gave me some great advice about this character.
Yeah. I'd love to know what Thor said about James Hunt.
What?
I do want to take some questions from the audience. If you can just raise your hand, I'll try to get to as many. I'll have to repeat the question. Go ahead. The biggest challenge in your process of characterization?
It was sort of the same as what Daniel was saying, as far as, you're playing a real person. There's this iconic figure, and this becomes a whole lot of responsibility and weight, and, there's his family members and what have you that, you want to be respectful and do it justice. And it was interesting. I think we both had the same kind of light bulb go off as far as we had that anxiety, and we were doing all the research we could, and then all of a sudden, you're hearing all these opinions. And I made the mistake of going to a pre-kickoff party for the film with a whole bunch of drivers and people from the industry who knew these guys. And I thought, this would be great, I'll get some good advice. And within like 5 minutes of being there, I was like, what am I doing here? Because everyone was like, well, he doesn't look like this, and he speaks like this, and what are you going to do with the accent, and how are you going to walk, and it was like, oh my God, there's the opinions, and but then I adopted the thing of, what, just like he approached life and driving, as did Niki, which was do it your way and disregard the sort of exterior opinions out there, and what was that going to be, and what's the most truthful version of that, and not to mimic him either, because that was another mistake, was to get up there and go, oh, look at, this is how he walks, or speaks like this, or keep indicating all the sort of the signals, and then you're mimicking something, you're a replica, you're not there's nothing truthful there. And so trying to empathize with the guys, I think, and trying to understand, okay, why was he like this, and where did that come from, and what is his motives, and no one's good or bad, and there's no kind of oh, he's just an arsehole, therefore let's play the character of the arsehole. It's he believes he was doing the right thing, and so yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't have that much
Shut up,
to
Chris.
add. It was such a no. It's finding the right balance, and then it's tricky to find your approach to certain things if you haven't gone through something similar. Then it can be sometimes very difficult to find the right approach. Because I was talking to Niki about death after his accident. The fact that he recovered within 40 days and then got back into the car is something which is still, incomprehensible for me. And then he said, yes, he had because I said, you must have felt some sort of fear, and he said, yes, there was a moment before Monza when he became fourth after his heavy accident, and he said, he was quite paralyzed when he tested his car, and then he couldn't change gears, and he was blocked, and then he said he went to a room, closed the curtains, lay down, and analyzed his fear for an hour, and then it was fine. And I said, like, wow, I'm gonna run. And when you so this is something that, and then you have to face your own fears or think of you somehow have to find an approach, and this is always moments that I love when they're so complicated, and then you just get there, but also with the help of Ron, obviously, and as Chris said, to find the right balance and getting things right, the body language and the accent and so on, but then also have the freedom to create a real character and make it real and like a real interpretation, and not mimicking.
Question about meeting with Niki and how he felt about, I guess, the emotional toll this took on him.
Yeah, it was after seeing the movie, Niki got very emotional, more than beforehand when we talked about James. He always said he respected this guy, and they had actually an okay relationship. They were rivals, but still had this deep respect, as we can see in the movie. So this is all true. But he got very emotional when he saw the movie, and it was very strange for me to see the movie with him. So I was watching the movie, and he said it was very tough to relive this moment because he can't remember the day of the accident at all. And he was very touched. The third time he saw it at the world premiere in London, he couldn't sleep that night. He told Peter Morgan, but he said a beautiful thing. He said he would have loved if James Hunt was still alive because he would have enjoyed it the most, and he would have been proud of Chris's performance. Aww. And this is very, beautiful.
I actually found a great quote from Niki. He seems like a very straightforward gentleman. When he thought that you did a great job, but he said when he first saw the movie, he said, "Holy shit, that's really me," which I think must be the highest praise.
A lot of people thought that, from the Formula One world, that Niki had. They said, "Oh, that's great. When did you do all the voiceover?" Yeah. And this is people who knew him. So,
what do you think James would have thought of the movie?
Actually, I spoke to his son at the Toronto Film Festival, and he said, I said, "Oh, look," and I was just so nervous talking to him actually, and because I hadn't met them prior to the shoot, and not out of any choice. It just didn't sort of come about, and I was kind of nervous to meet anyone too close in case, I don't know, there's the sort of opinions and whatever, and he said, Dad would have just gone. Would have been blown away that anyone would have even given a shit or wanted to make a movie about him, Wow. And he was kind of laughing about it and saying he would have laughed himself, and that's pretty special.
What percentage of you is Thor, and what percentage is James?
I can fly, and I do a lot of drugs, and a lot of sex, and I don't know.
Just say 50-50.
50-50, half and half. I don't know. I mean, you kind of always got to empathise with either character at some point. And this was the toughest one for me because there was, I said before, the guy had such a freedom with the way he did things. He honestly just didn't, it was his way. And which is pretty hard when you're standing there trying to impersonate someone or, go, okay, this is who this guy is. And it was just kind of, being able to fail and kind of go, okay, I'm going to screw this up a few times, and maybe 1 in 10 will get it, and hopefully that's the one they print. And what I loved about James, and I don't know if it was, I hope there's some of that in me, which is is the sort of childlike nature he has, and sort of, need to have fun and the fascination with the world and not get too bogged down with things and take it seriously, which he did at times, but I think his goal was to enjoy it. And I think, that was, I love that, the kind of attitude, Thor, I don't know.
Thor's got a good sense of humor.
He's got a good sense of humor, yeah. He's pretty
It was
naive,
fun the first time I saw him trying to get into a Formula 3 car. I cracked up. I thought, this is Thor trying to get into
That's what Ron says. The first thing Ron said to me, Thor's not going to fit in a Formula 1 car, man. I'll lose weight.
Did they have to build a car for you?
We had to pull the seat out a couple of times, and I had to sit on the chassis and the metal piping underneath. But James was the same height as me. Really? He was one of the tallest Formula 1 drivers and had a hell of a time in getting in the car. And the weight I got down to was similar to him, so I understood his feelings. He used to cut the ends of his shoes off because so he would have that extra space there because it was, you're cocooned in these things. It's insane, and you absolutely feel every vibration. And he'd pull in after testing the cars and be like, this is shit. The car's too small. What have you done to the seat? And this is this. And so I said that as well. I blame the tools.
I think we have time for one more over here. Yeah.
It's out back. Yeah. I mean, the driving was, you know, we did as much as we could until it got to the point where they said, no, if you die halfway through the shoot, we're not going to be able to finish the shoot. So they bring in the stunt team and do the, you know, the absolute dangerous stuff. But I mean, we did enough to the point where I know for me, a number of times I went, okay, this is you know, this is dangerous. This could end badly, and you know, we'd whip around the track and they'd be like, okay, don't go over this speed limit and stay here, and then you get round the bend and just and do your thing, and you can't help it. I mean, they're an extension of you, and it's pretty hard not to kind of get a little trigger happy with it.
I'm guessing neither of you are claustrophobic.
No. Then I was told Ron drove in a Ferrari with Niki Lauda in a Fiorano. That's the testing racetrack for Ferrari. And he freaked out completely. I mean, Ron was like, oh my God. I can't imagine that.
I just want to close by asking what's
We're
up
both
next.
going to play Ron in a movie. So
Yeah, I know. I just want to ask what's up next for you guys? Where can we see you next? I understand you're reteaming with Ron.
Yeah, we're doing a movie called In the Heart of the Sea, which is from the book called In the Heart of the Sea, which is based on the journal entries and the true events that inspired Herman Melville to write Moby Dick. So it was the Essex, the whaling ship, was struck by a whale and sunk, and then the guys who survived were on ill-equipped whale boats for 93 days, drifting in the ocean. They landed on a little island at one point, and then had to go back out, and ended up, you know, having to eat each other at times. And they found these guys on the boats, like the 2 or 3 survivors of each boat, huddled with kind of a handful of bones, and they were had sort of lost their minds by this point, and had been sucking the bone marrow out of the bones, and it was horrific. Anyway, it's not a horror film.
Yes. It's a comedy, clearly.
It's a romantic comedy.
Is Peter
that's a
writing
small
it?
piece of it. Yeah, Peter Morgan came in and did some rewrites on it, and Anthony Dodmantle, who shot this film, is also on it too. So it's a nice
Great
regroup. And Daniel.
Super, and I'm not in it. I auditioned for a cannibal, but it didn't work.
He's playing the whale.
So I guess Ron liked you after all.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Still not
I think so.
sure.
Yes. Yeah. No, we got a good thing. He's fantastic. We had the script. My manager brought it to me a couple of years ago, and we loved it. And the script has been around for a while, but it's a tough subject to get made. And Ron had read it, and then I sort of, I don't know, gave him my pitch from it, and he had a reread and fell in love with it. So.
And for you?
I'll be working again with Andrew Eaton, one of the producers on that movie, and it's going to be the next Michael Winterbottom film. It's called Angel Face, and it's quite an interesting subject. It deals with Amanda Knox and the murders in Perugia, in
Are you
Italy.
the boyfriend?
And I'm playing no. I'm playing a young filmmaker, and it deals with journalism and sensational journalism. It's very interesting approach.
Well, I cannot wait to see what you guys do next. Again, congratulations on a beautiful movie.
Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you.